Hi there, Rebecca again. I'm here to talk to you about this book, The Happiness Box, A Wartime Book of Hope. It is another one of the Children's Book Council of Australia shortlisted books. This is actually a really interesting book. I heard an interview with the author, Mark Greenwood, about the creation of this book, the writing of this book, and it's actually a really interesting listen. So if you have time, look it up. I don't have the link at the moment, but he does talk about it. So what this book does is it's retelling the story of the fall of Singapore. Not many Australians really know the story of Singapore. I mean, unless you have something to do with the armed forces. And it's an interesting read because we had the Australians and British in Singapore ready to defend, and the Japanese came and just took over really quickly. They took over really, really quickly. And what ended up happening is we had a lot of people put into prison. Now, it wasn't only soldiers, but it was actually the people living within Singapore at the time that had to go into prisoner of war camps. And so what you had is you had the men put in one camp and you had the women and children in another. And the men, in particular soldiers, were quite concerned about the children not having toys and happiness at Christmas time. So they pulled together and started making all these toys for the children in the camp next door. And it was particularly led by an officer called Sergeant Griff Griffin. Okay. So it tells you the story of the conditions in the camp for the men in particular, and what they had to go through, and what happens when they actually do see what they're like, what happens when they make the toys, and one of Griff has made the mistake of actually naming one of the characters in the book he's written, Winston, and it's quite tragic. And rather than destroying the book, which they say that they're going to do, they actually hide the book. And the book can now be seen. I understand at the War Memorial. It might be put away for now, but it's a good book. I think really if you are interested in talking about history, and if you're a child wanting to learn about history, in particular history of war, go and have a look for this book, because it's one of those perspectives that we don't necessarily hear or read about when we actually are talking about war. Thanks for listening.